A warm welcome to Berlinale Talents, a warm welcome to the How Hebel am Ufer, a warm welcome to the Berlinale. Very nice to see you here today again. So we are in the Hebel Theater, we are in the middle of the festival, and we are talking about sustainability. And sustainability, that's a word that people have heard every now and then. It's something that is all over the press. It's also all here in the film industry. And it's also something I think which is very dear to many people in private. In this session, which we do together with our co-partner Mastercard, we want to unfold the idea of sustainability a little bit further, and we want to put it on very practical questions. Because when you're asked as a filmmaker, when you're asked as a private person, when you're asked as me, for myself, for example, so when you're asked, okay, how can I make my life more sustainable? How can I change my life in some ways? This is something that you believe in, but it's also something that you need to do, so that you need to make happen. And we are in a very lucky position at Berlinale Talents. We're also very lucky here in a very good position with Mastercard as the partner that we have the Mastercard Enablement Programme. This is a program which is actually dealing with exactly this topic, and it brings us people who have solutions, so who can bring in ideas. Sometimes the solutions are not 100% there. That's the idea of the Mastercard Enablement Programme. It's a mentorship program where the people receive extra support financially, but also through experts from around the globe, so that they can move their projects forwards in different areas of sustainability. And that's something that is most important to us. A lot of people think about ecological sustainability right away, but social sustainability, which is here today, our core topic, is something that tackles, that includes a lot of things that we find very, very important to move the film industry forward, also to make the film stronger and send important impacts and messages to the audiences out there. And I won't reveal who is there on the side of the Mastercard Enablement Programme fellows, although they have been announced yesterday, because you will see them on stage a little bit later. But first and foremost, I would like to introduce you to those who have chosen the 3 fellows. It was a tough job, but now they are out. And now the jury is relaxed, and the jury is with me today. At least 2 of the members of the jury are here. And we have them here on screen. So I have them here on my left side. And I might move over a little bit here so that I can see you. And I will briefly introduce you, although I think some of you will know you. And I have on the left side Zazie Beetz. Zazie, I have the feeling we've seen each other in the last days so often. So I was really like, okay, there she is again. Very cool. Hi, Zazie. Nice to have you here. You're actually joining us from overseas. So not around the corner. German-born American actress, Emmy nominated, and you are known for many as one of the actors from Atlanta, from the series, but also, of course, people remember you from Joker. Just recently, or in the last days, you've been in 9 days, and I'm also reading because The Harder They Fall is also something I'd like to congratulate you on. Great job. And we'd love to hear also a little bit more on what you are doing. So, but today we unfold also the idea of sustainability in your work, which is the work of an actor on set, but probably also beyond. So we'll find out. On Zazie's right side, from my side at least, we have Jonas. Very nice to have you here. Jonas is actually also, I would say, a family member, not only because of the involvement in the jury, but also because Jonas is a Talents alumnus of us. So he has been in Berlinale Talents quite a while ago, not long ago, because we are family, so we stick together. His company, the Weydemann Bros production company, is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. Congratulations, not only us. We are having 20th anniversary. You're here. You're known to the audience, or your films are known to the audience here in the Berlinale context. It's System Crasher, Systemsprenger, a film by Nora Finkscheid, also a Talents alumna of ours, that won a Silver Bear. But there's also several more films that you've been involved in and are involved in the moment. So I'm interested in your on-set, but also practical experiences of a producer who is fighting, working and putting efforts into more sustainable sets and film production in general. Welcome. So I'm very happy to have you here to set the ground for a while so that we are well prepared before we bring in the Mastercard Enablement Fellows. Zazie, as I mentioned in the beginning, so social sustainability, so that word is social sustainability, it's a complicated word for us even, but it's so often used in these days. So when you choose a role or when you are offered a role, how much of the circumstances in which a film is made, not necessarily the story, of course, I think that's the first thing you might think about, or the role, but how much the circumstances in which the film is made is something you take into consideration, or can you take it into consideration at the beginning? What kind of questions are you posing when you're interested in choosing a role with regards to the circumstances?
Do you mean like social circumstances or sort of environmental circumstances?
I would say both. So probably first the social circumstances. So because let's imagine, so you're coming and you're thinking about, okay, what kind of conditions are offered in a way to make me and give me opportunities to unfold myself in a good way?
Yeah. Yes, I think so sort of social circumstances in terms of sort of like energy or vibe on set, I suppose, in terms of like that is actually quite important to me, working with, we were just talking about this with the fellows a couple of minutes ago, but working with people who are kind and who can create a healthy working environment. I think there is a lot of romanticism, particularly in the film industry, about people having big personalities and that essentially translating into people who have toxic personalities, and that is like sort of the true artist or the true, they're geniuses trapped in bad behavior, but it doesn't matter because beautiful art comes out of it, right? Which I think is an archaic way of thinking and of approaching this industry, essentially. I think vulnerability obviously rears its head in many different ways. That's where I think a lot of this behavior comes from. But I think there are healthier ways to deal with it. And it's okay to have emotions. I mean, we're all making ourselves very vulnerable. I can say as an actor, you're putting yourself on the line in front of a lot of people you don't know, and you have to kind of put everything out there. But I think that it is your responsibility to make sure that others don't feel uncomfortable, and that you can make sure everybody, creating a pleasant environment also serves the story the best, because then people feel safe to take risks. People feel safe to try new things or to make suggestions or to have ideas. And if you're not fostering that kind of place, it's not going to happen. And so for me, as somebody who is quite sensitive, I do avoid working with people who are, I guess, for lack of a better word, have a reputation of being problematic, because it's very hard for me to fully function on those kinds of sets. And so I think sort of, energy and behavior on set is incredibly important and impacts the storytelling. In terms of environmental, I think it's actually time we make changes in terms of making sets more sustainable. I know that there are efforts in this direction, in terms of like having compostable materials, giving out reusable water bottles versus just plastic ones on set, and just in whatever way trying to reduce waste. But it's certainly not carbon neutral. Making movies is quite it takes a lot of materials. And so I feel like that is the next frontier in trying to create carbon neutral sets. And obviously COVID has created a big issue with that, because things have to be more disposable. I think that's across the world and across all fields right now. So I'm looking forward to when we can go back to at least our normal state of being, where less waste is being used, even with like food and stuff, rather than having even compostable packages, having just reusable forks and knives, reusable plates available, which used to be the case, and now with COVID is not the case. But yes, this is something me and my partner talk a lot about in terms of how can we in the future make sets more environmentally aware, whether that's offsetting flights or choosing travel for people that is less abrasive to the environment, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and if you so can you break it down a little bit? So this thank you for first and foremost for there's already a lot on the plate here. So if you break it down, you get a role offered. So what kind of it's not that simple, I know, but it's I try it at least. So what kind of parameters you take into account? So is it the time offered, for example, to be on set? So from which you read, okay, it's an environment in which I can unfold myself, where there's time for rehearsals or there's time for also in between conversations or something, or is it the conditions? So something practical on set, the way how who's taking care of you, for example, and on how sets. How deep did you go into that kind of details before you choose?
Well,
or can you?
A lot of those elements are not really predictable, right?
Yeah.
So like I can't really choose who I guess it depends. I think the more successful you are, yes, you can sort of make certain choices and dictate certain things, like who you're. If you have the luxury of like an assistant or something like that they're providing for you, you can potentially pick who you want, but not really. A lot of times those things, at least for me, where I'm at, are kind of out of my control. So really, and whether or not you have time for rehearsal or not, you can talk about that with your director if that's something you value. But ultimately, a work day is a work day, and a lot of those things, at least from an actor's standpoint, are more out of our control. So I think where that comes to the sense of security around the feeling of a set really comes from the energy of a director and the energy of the producers. Are they people who seem sort of on my wavelength in terms of how making a film is comfortable for me, I suppose. So in terms of, yes, do they agree with having rehearsals? Is that something we can try to work into the process? Are they people who seem calm, or people who seem genuinely collaborative, people who seem excited by new ideas, or are they quite possessive of what's already going on and can't make any shifts or changes, which to me is usually a little bit of a red flag of like, okay, there's not a lot of malleability here, so where else does malleability lack? And of course, these are all rather general terms, but I think that when, as an actor, my meetings with producers and directors before I accept a role are quite informative of how I feel like the energy and the vibe that are going to be, because it's top-down trickle. So I think like if the director is calm and if the director is captaining their ship, essentially they're like, it's their job to make sure everybody's making the same movie, and their job to make sure everybody is working toward the same goal. If I see that they have true vision, if I see that, they have, empathy and all of that, I can trust that energy will trickle down to everybody else, or a producer as well. I think this also comes into the responsibility of lead actors. So if you're like truly playing the lead of a movie, you also have to provide, it's your job to provide the environment, and you're the one in power. So you're the one also responsible for how people are. And I've seen like that makes a huge difference. Like a crew, the happiness of a crew. Do we get lunch breaks or not? Are we doing 12-hour days or 10-hour days? And all of that like really impacts morale, and it's hard to get morale back once it's lost. And again, this is all coming from what seemed to be like the leaders of the production, which to me are often the producers, lead actor, and director. I don't know if that was sort of a long-winded response.
No, perfect. I think you gave the right keywords to shift perspective for a second to the producer. And so since the two haven't worked together, so I think we can totally freely speak here in that room. But lunch breaks, Jonas, and time, setups, environment. So from a producer's perspective, first and foremost, of course, you want to make the film happen in the best way, I guess. So, but for a producer's perspective, time is money. So lunch break, okay, yeah, that's for sure. So you have to feed the people. So tell me a little bit, what's the producer's, let's say, essential perspective on sustainability first? So why it's important to you, but also what is, if you put on your other hat, so the hat of those who has to keep a production together. So how can you bring these two things together?
I think it's in general the big question of, do you see it as one project and one sprint, or do you see the whole thing as a marathon and you want to make a lot of movies and you want to work with the same people twice or three times of the whole career? And if you see it as a marathon, then it's probably cost effective to feed the people. Just a matter of speaking, because you need them further on. But then it makes sense. So our I think our company from the very beginning, and I started out with my brother, and now we are quite a film family with a lot of different types going into all the head of departments, trying to work further on more projects together is one of our key columns of working on film or serial drama. And then it does become a very important part of the whole strategy to be sustainable in a way that people want to work together again and again and again. Mm-hmm. And that is the same, of course, on the content base, but the basics for it is that you somehow find a way to create an environment which is pleasant, let's say, for everyone. And that doesn't mean that me, from a producer's point of view, of course, it's not about having perks on all sides. It's not about having perks for certain people involved in the project and for others not, because one thing is also, from my point of view, that all the different kinds of people involved in a film project are kind of having the same importance. It's more, and that is sometimes misunderstood from my point of view in the industry. But it's finding out what makes the line. It's not giving perks or making somebody feel special, whatever, but finding out what everyone needs for their respective role or position in order to work best, in order to feel good, and that is basically giving the basics, back to the food, back to the time. The other thing is having rooms in order to relax, having workspaces in order or the way in order to build things, but not having everything at the same time crumbled. So it's the stress level. Try to find a way to have the stress level in the same, in a good way. But then, of course, it is long days. That is something we can't work around. The same with the environmental sustainability. We can't. I think the footprint is somehow there, but that is a problem of ourselves. Being alive is consuming energy somehow. So we have to find a way how we can take that the best way, also in the environment of people. And I think one key thing is the communication, because as we are a lot of people working on the set, but in all parts of the process of producing a film, we have to communicate a lot. And there you can find out, if you have the right partners, if you find out how we communicate with each other, as Zazie said, how are we, how's the protocol? Does a person like to speak like from top to down, or do we try to understand each other? And if we create an atmosphere where that is working, then I think you have a good chance to be sustainable somehow.
And that is interesting, I think. So because you're coming to the point of communication, it would be interesting. Do you have an example? So do you have one practical thing where probably also, if you think back about a production 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and now how you do it today? So probably you have always been the best communicator on set and set up perfect things there. But something practical, morning rounds. I'm just making up something. So give us a practical thing. What makes communication in your case, also in Zazie's case, probably you can also respond to that, something more valuable and acknowledging?
It's a good question. I don't have the answer what it is, but I think it has to fit to the people guiding or the captains in the moment of the process. For example, directors on set, it has to fit to their personality, and if they find to have if they can go lead it their way, if they can be transparent and honest, then everybody will follow that way. I think it's not that you have to be, I don't know, energetic every morning, or you have to be this or that way. It's just, I think if in the important positions you have the feeling you can be as you are, and everyone else feels the same, then you create one communication which works for that part of the process.
Yeah.
And maybe one thing to add, I think there's, as you said, for certain productions, in the first years when I came, like for example, the years when I was a Berlinale Talent, often when people ask me, "Oh, you're shooting, it must be a stressful time. How's it going?" And I said, "Oh, it's great." And often the answer was, "Oh, then it can't be a good film." This kind of myth that it has to be conflict and hard and everything so difficult in production that makes a good film, I think it's really nonsense. And that doesn't mean that you have a lot of conflict, let's say positive exchange about the content, but it doesn't have to be always in a totally stressful, negative way in order to be creative.
Yeah. Zazie, something to add to, because I read a quote from you about I think it was about the Atlanta set, and you compared it to a family. So you said, okay, there was really a place where you felt warm and at home. So there's also other quotes where you say, okay, sometimes I feel so intimidated, and it takes such a long time until I find my spot on set, and then it's almost over. But here it was so different. So there was a heartwarming, yes, I love it thing, and you named all the people involved. So tell us, what was the difference there? So what made the difference?
Yeah, I think it's, what's nice with television is you're getting to work with people again, right? So then communication ends up becoming a bit more of a shorthand, especially if you like the people, you just end up becoming friends beyond coworkers. So I would say that is sort of like an element to like the family feeling. And so you just feel more comfortable. You just know these people better. What I will say, what I think is useful in terms of directly speaking to communication in general is just transparency. There's so much going on a set. There's so many people. A lot of times decisions are made and people don't really know why, and so then that can be frustrating, right? Like if say a call is being forced, which is like when people have to come in earlier than you're technically meant to. There are certain like union rules around when people can come in or not, because you need a certain amount of time like break between when you finish shooting and when you start shooting again. But for extra pay, you can break those rules as long as you sort of get permission from the right people. And a lot of times, when that happens, people, that means they get less rest time. It means they get less time to go home, be with their families, and blah, blah, blah. And then it's usually people generally grumble about like a forced call, right? And but I think, if you have no context as to why that's happening, you're like, oh, we really need to make sure this scene gets done because we only have this many days. But like, I think sharing all that information, I think would be helpful for people to contextualize what's going on. And so they don't just think like, oh, they're just trying to cram in as much as they can or something like that. Or even like, I was on a set recently where most of the run of set, we never really had a lunch break. So they call it like rolling lunches. You get 3 hours to kind of find a couple minutes if you can to eat at some point, but there's no defined like half an hour everybody sits down and takes a break. And now as an actor, while maybe a little bit inconveniencing me, it's not that big of a deal. Between scene setups, I can usually get like 10, 15 minutes or something like that. But a cameraman, they don't have 15 minutes anywhere. They're working the entire time. Either they're shooting the scene or they're setting up the next scene. So there's no sit down time for them. And so they sort of are like, I don't know, they're just shoveling food in a minute here, a minute there, and they don't get any kind of just like half an hour to just sit, have a moment, and then return to work. And, if that's happening a lot, I feel like it would just be good even to explain, like, what is this? Why is this happening? Is this because we're running out of days? You know what I think? I think a lot of sort of that type of explanation would go a long way in terms of people being like, okay, I understand why, and this isn't just to save money or something like that, And I think just in general transparency in all things, and being less sacred about what can be told and what can't be told, I think would be helpful. That's just my point of view.
Yeah. I want to bring in one word here, because you touch it every now and then. But we haven't heard that word. Is hierarchies. And I think it's hierarchies, and you mentioned it in between the different departments. You mentioned it also in between being a younger actor and have to pay respect to the elders or to others or to the people who are more known or whatever is the reason. And that hierarchy. Do you think, from also your perspective, going from one set to the other, and also having in the back of your head all the discussions around what is going on in the industry in the moment? So is there a change coming? So is hierarchies breaking as we always think? So the bad old days, I would say, not even the good old days, are more or less gone, where there is the hero, the king of the director, and this is top of the hierarchy, and the rest has to shovel in food, as you said, or what is your perspective? So can we be optimistic? So is there change coming?
I don't want to necessarily say hierarchy is bad. I think because I think it's a boss and their employees, right? So like if you're like the key or the head of a department, right? You're the head of a makeup department, hair department. You're the one that's designing it. You're the one that's coming up with all the creative ideas, and you're the through line of the imagination of what this project is going to be. And then you have the people you have hired to come with you on this journey to help you fulfill that vision, right? And usually the department head is somebody who's been working for 20 years and has experience, and they hire people who have less experience, and they help also train them and guide them, and it's a team, right? So I think hierarchy in itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. That's how, there are hundreds of people that are working on a set, so there needs to be some kind of understanding of who is making the final decisions ultimately. But I think hierarchy can be conflated with somebody has more or less value, somebody has more or less, I guess, like rights on a set, or or that it can mean somebody has less respect than somebody else. And I think that's a problem, right? Like, we shouldn't be genuflecting only to the director, and anything they say goes, and anything, it doesn't matter. Like everything drops if the director or if an actor or whatever. Like, I think that's where the issue is, or people, or like actors or producers, like, traditionally, right? If they're like, why did you bring me this sandwich? That's not what I wanted, blah, blah, blah. Like that, I think, is conflated with hierarchy. And that's, to me, not hierarchy. That's either respectful or disrespectful behavior. And so I think, I guess that's my my point of view, and I do think it's changing. I do think people are now less likely to work with people who are difficult, and I think you see that in actors as well. I think there's less sort of complicated behavior, or behavior that is just not really sustainable, to sort of use the word we're using, because people are kind of like, it's just not as much in the culture, I think, as it used to be. And, you know, that's coming from somebody who hasn't been in the industry very long. So, you know, that's what I can say to that. But I do think it is changing, because I think all of our sort of, I think society is changing around who has value and who doesn't have value, and how we think about that. And so
absolutely. I agree. And I think before we now bring in the Mastercard Enablement Programme fellows, which kind of for me prove that there's change coming. So anything to add from your side, Jonas? So to that part.
No, I would totally agree that hierarchy is, as you just explained, Zazie, is not a bad thing. I think it's very necessary for how we're working in a short time with a lot of people involved. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. But it's what you make out of it, or what you misunderstand about it.
Oh, you misunderstand, yeah.
But I think one really big important point about this whole thing is still the time issue, that we are trying, because of money reasons mainly, trying to push a lot of things into a very short period of time. And I'm not really sure why we as an industry really need that. Other industries also find a way to make it in a little bit more usual way. And of course, it's a money issue, but also then everything follows that, right? It's like the wages of all people involved are getting bigger for every one day they're working on set, and so on and so forth. So you always try to even put it in a smaller period of time, because everyone earns more in a less period of time, and so on and so forth. And I think it's there should be also a way to try to take it the other way around, because finally it's too stressful, and you can't change that if you don't have more time.
I agree on that point. Also, as a festival maker, I would say I agree on that point, definitely. So, of course, we're also squeezing a lot of things into very short days. Now, I would like to squeeze in something very important and give a lot of time on the other side to the Mastercard Enablement Programme fellows. And they will introduce themselves through a short video, but also, of course, live. And since we have three, we start with Shuchita Lati. She is a screenwriter and director from India, residing in the US. She has been with us at Berlinale Talents 2021 in the script station. Actually, now her film is also quite successful this year and represented by her producer, who is also involved in the project that we will present here today. So you see, it's always filmmakers, but what we are doing in the Mastercard Enablement Programme is we are highlighting what they do when they don't do films, which is film related. In that particular case, Shuchi will explain what it is. Shuchi, where are you? There you are. Hello. So wonderful. I think we can show the first show the clip so that everything is set, and then we have you live. So, hello, Shuchi, here you are already. I have one question for you in particular, and then I will go on and also introduce the others so that we don't start to discuss too deeply into only one project, because all of your projects, in a way, tackle different aspects of what we've just had here. So, what we've heard, your project is related to a very particular part on the film set, so a very particular crew of people on the film set. Can you unfold that for also probably a non-film audience? Who are those people? What are they doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, you know, when you're on a film set and a scene is being lit, there are basically all these wonderful skilled technicians who do that. So we usually hear of the cinematographer who kind of like leads the charge and is trying to execute the kind of the visual aesthetic of the film. But to assist them, there are two kind of departments, which are either called like electric or lighting, and the other one is grip. And basically the electric and lighting, very simply, is those people are in charge of everything that relates to electricity and power. So they set up lights, they run, kind of cables to make sure that there is the power that is needed and it's all done safely. And then supporting them are the grip departments, which, there's a lot of lighting things and a lot of support things that are not electrical. So, if there was a really bright light on me and you wanted to cut it off, you set up a flag, that's grip. If you need to recreate the sun or the moon and you need a light to be set up really high, in addition to the electricity, you actually need to figure out how to get the light up there so safely, and that's grip. And also they do a lot of other things, like when you see like fancy crane moves or dolly moves, all of that camera support is also grip. So these are very, very key technicians. And because I think, in our culture, I feel like in many, many technical departments, especially if they also involve physical strength, they end up being overwhelmingly male. And I think this is definitely not like limited to India. I feel like all around the world, these departments are very, very male.
Mm. And in relation to what you've just heard, just very briefly, so when you hear the word sustainability, or when you heard about the program first, and you thought about applying, of course, support is always great. So, but what made you relate to it in the first and foremost? So also, what made you relate to what the jury just folded?
Yeah, I really appreciated the conversation about like kind of environments on set, which is something that I think a lot about, because the way, maybe I'll just talk a little bit about how this training program, the Bright Squad, came about. Was
we come to that point a bit later. So because it's on. But give me one point.
Just one. Well, I think it's basically. I think we think a lot about like what genius product, art product we're creating, but I think how we make it informs everything. And I think it's very important to consider how it affects the people who are working on the film, behind and in front of the camera. And I think that should be as important. How we make things sustainably is just as important as what we make.
Yeah, and I think one first and foremost important thing of the initiative is that people who are not connected necessarily to a film set every day get aware of those people. They're aware of, like you said, how important their key contribution to a film is, and learn a little bit more about the circumstances under which they work. So thank you very much for bringing that up. I would like to bring up the next fellow, who is Amar Assis, director and producer. Amar actually was with us at Berlinale Talents in 2012, 10 years ago. Congratulations, wonderful. And you're coming from Pakistan and you're presenting a project. Let's watch the clip.
Samaj is a Pakistani organization using creative mediums for defending gender equality and freedom of expression. The Girls Sexual Abuse Prevention Programme is an ongoing project that has created a first-of-its-kind 2D animated superhero series called Super Sony to raise awareness and initiate a conversation about child sexual abuse in Pakistan. Samaj is organizing several screenings and workshops in girls' schools and community centers all across the country. Our goal is to break the silence around this taboo.
Amma, very nice to have you with us. Thank you very much. You're widening the idea of sustainability. So far, we were kind of stuck to the set. So with your film, with your series, and with everything that you have around, it goes into the worlds of, or the question of sustainability for film, through film, with film in general. Is this true? Can you unfold that?
Thank you. First of all, good evening, and I'm very glad to be here today. I think it's very in cinema and then sustainability in animation. They are not necessarily the same, because when you're shooting a film out there, you're spending time in an environment, and with people, and you're affecting the environment, you're affecting the social and economic conditions of that area wherever you're shooting, be it a fiction film or a non-fiction film. But when it comes to animation, you're mostly working in a closed space, like in an office environment. And so your interaction with the outer world is minimal. And our project is it's based on it's an animation series. And when I say that it's first of its kind, it's not that it has not been done before in the country, but the people that we have worked with, especially the animators that we are working with, they come from they don't come from fancy backgrounds, because in our country there are some like fancy studios and which spend a lot of money and resources, but we have worked with limited resources. So in a way, this project is also empowering the people who are working on this, and of course they are also empowering us. So it's both ways, right? People who are starting just now, students, younger people who come from small towns and they don't have a prior experience, but they're very passionate about drawing and stuff. I don't know if I answered your question, but I think it's important to understand the difference when we're talking about because we're largely talking about cinema here, and I'm a practicing documentary filmmaker, but that's another I think that's another area, and we can talk about that. But this project only incorporates animation. But then we are taking this animated series to schools all over the country. So that's where the interaction comes in. That's where the environmental responsibilities come in, and so forth.
Yeah. No, I think you answered it perfectly well. So because also you connect the idea of story and storytelling, or story making, filmmaking in a way. So that these two worlds have to interconnect. So we can have a wonderful, sustainable set, whatever. But if the story doesn't refer to it, doesn't connect to it, and vice versa, it's not working. So thank you very much for that. And I will bring in Laura Elena Bermudez Mesquita from the director from Honduras. She has been with us in 2021 as well, last year in the digital edition. And you're joining us with something once again different. And that's the beauty of the Mastercard Enablement Programme. You will see we had a film already. We had a project here which is dealing with people working on set. And now, Laura, what do we have? Show your clip.
Tercer Cine is the first alternative cinema exhibition project in Honduras. Our goal is to create a more accessible and inclusive space for independent cinema for the different type of audiences in our country. We want to have dialogues and reflections within our communities through the carefully curated film screenings and workshops with an intersectional approach to representation.
Laura, welcome. Thank you very much. And in very brief words from my side, so you're widening the idea of a safe set to a safe cinema. Is that true? Or how can we imagine what you have in mind? It's way more than a room where we can screen and see films, right?
Hi, Florian. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Yes, I believe, well, I'm a documentary filmmaker, but I started to reflect the importance also to bring, the tool, the education of cinema, and also other, bring screenings, bring films to other communities, not in the city where I'm from, that they don't have access to it. So we can, have more diversity of gazes, of dialogues. Just so you know, Honduras just had, a cinema law approved recently, 2 years ago. So now that we are starting, to have properly funds, we never had it before. I was thinking, it's gonna be so poor if all of the funds will go to, the middle class, privileged, educated Hondurans. We need to expand that, and also we need more informed audiences, and we underrate the audiences, I believe. And just because we only have commercial cinemas until now doesn't mean the audience will like to see independent cinema. And so we did a pop-up cinema project. We're doing it right now with our team back in Honduras from Third Cinema. And it's amazing. The audiences likes to see different things, and we have amazing dialogues. And I think that is important for the whole film industry.
Thank you very much. And we have all of three you now with you, or with us, with you as well, because you're sitting next to each other here. And for the last 15 minutes, I'd like to remind ourselves a little bit of what we put on the plate here in the beginning with Zazie and Jonas, and see how it relates to your different kind of projects. And first and foremost, I'd say, Chuchi, when we were looking into not only your project, but also your film, you said that your task was to set up something like an all-women team, and it was difficult to do that. Was that the beginning of that whole initiative that we have here today, or can you tell us a little bit about that? So diversity on set in that respect.
Totally, you're absolutely right about that. We were crewing up for a film that is called Girls Will Be Girls, and deals with a young girl's coming of age and her sexual awakening. And for this, we were really thinking about how to create a set that is safe for the young actors, where they feel, like Zazie was saying earlier, like safe to take risks, because it requires not just to tackle something that is quite taboo in India. So it requires a certain kind of bravery, but also like emotional vulnerability. So to surround them in this cocoon, and it's not that men cannot provide this environment, certainly, but the truth of our world right now is that we live in a sort of sexist, patriarchal society. And in my experience, like a couple times when I've been on all women sets, I can't quite even explain it. It felt like we all took a collective exhale. It felt really like we have not had this experience before. And on my last short film, which also dealt with sexuality, and the female actress had to be basically nude for 3 days. And she said, I feel so loved here. I feel so safe. Here are all my rolls of fat, and here are my stretch marks, and I feel so good. And this is what we wanted to kind of recreate for the young actors in Girls Will Be Girls. But as we started kind of looking around, of course, we all know that grip and electrics are quite male departments, but we thought we might find 5 women, a few. And we were really shocked to find that there were not any women in those departments. And that's kind of when a colleague of mine, Tanya Negi, who's in India right now and hopefully watching, was like, what if we create a training program? And it seemed kind of like crazy, because I think we were really worried that no one would apply. It's like, if you can't, they say like you can't be what you can't see. So if you haven't seen this, like, would women imagine themselves in this position? Would they want to apply? Would other people who we would like to come on as mentors even take this seriously. And, but we kind of took a risk, and you guys took a risk with us. And it's kind of amazing to see that when you do kind of crack open a door, there's people out there just right outside who want to come in.
Absolutely. How is it on your side, Amar? So when you spoke about giving also young people, young filmmakers a chance, so how do you gather, or how did you gather the team for your series? And how open it is, and where are probably the white spots where you think, okay, here we need to nurture so that these people can grow over the next years, so that it becomes more enriched.
So when we started forming this team initially, because we are a non-profit organization, we're not an animation studio, but that's one reason we wanted to create our own studio, because we wanted to sort of train younger people and also people from underprivileged backgrounds to be a part of the process, instead of just outsourcing this work to some other studio, which a lot of people do, a lot of organizations do. They just collaborate with animators in Eastern Europe or other South Asian countries, which is also because of exploitative reasons, by the way, because they see that as cheap labor. But we wanted to create a team which is all locally based in Pakistan. Most of our team members are women. I'm here only because I am an alumnus of the Berlinale Talents. Otherwise, this project would not have been possible without my partner and the co-founder of our organization, who's a wonderful woman called Seher Mirza. She's a journalist and activist. But coming back to your question, it also included working with so many actors. So we wanted to work with people who have no prior experience of facing the camera or the mic, in this case, of being in the studio. So we had to train a lot of young girls, and who have given their voice to these animated characters. And then we also worked with a lot of local folk and classical musicians, for this. So I'm very glad that this whole team, it consists of people who are all based here. They come from diverse backgrounds. It might not sound like a big deal to our friends who are from different parts of the world, but being in Pakistan, I think it means a lot when you have a team which includes Christians, Hindus, and people from other faiths, because it's a Muslim country, right? It's an Islamic country, so it's not a secular country that we live in. So we wanted to make sure that our team is diverse, and our stories are diverse, and our so that's how we. I think we have spent a lot of time, and with your support now, with this program support, I think it would really help the project to, it will really help us to translate this into a couple of other regional languages, Sindhi and Pashto, and we will then take it to other parts of the country. So I think it means a lot, this whole program, and once again, I'm very thankful to the jury and to everyone out there who supported us.
I think we are thankful too. And Laura, picking up on the word of diversity, and also remembering what we said about hierarchies and so on set. So I have the feeling that Third Cinema also comes up with a bit of a different concept. So can we call you a collective, or what kind of communication structures you have within your whole team?
Yes, I do believe that, change is collective. We have right now, we're 4 volunteer, members, Honduran. We have an Argentinian, also Joaquin Roca, and we have, a very, properly committed team. But what we want is to expand this to the communities, and we want to empower those communities too, so it could be sustainable. We were talking about sustainability, right? And in a bigger vision, what I think is that if we don't, I'm a filmmaker first, but if I don't think about other gazes, and if I don't think about other filmmakers, and also I want to see other films, it will never be sustainable. it will never like grow so that we can all benefit from a powerful film that can make our conscious to expand. So I do think that we are a good team, and I think we want to also expand our approach to the power to other communities with their own stories and their way to create their own representation of themselves.
Thank you very much. And I'm sitting here not alone on stage. I have Jonas and Zazie next to me. So when you listen to those three, so they're wonderful things. Of course, you have read all the material, but now you see them talking about it. So what does that make with you? What does it leave with you? Is there hope? Is there enjoyment? Where would you like to come on board of their projects? Would you like to run the cinema together with Laura, or would you come on board, Jonas, and see what the Bright Squad is doing? Where could you contribute? We are searching for connections here. So where could you contribute? So what would you like to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think seeing these projects, I think what's really cool about this program specifically is seeing how wide-reaching film can affect people, and in what different ways we can use film to affect change, and to see that I feel like our industry has been changing a lot with like streamers and just how it works, and it's been shifting, and it's cool to see like that there is still belief in like cinema and in theaters and in the power of film, and how it can influence lives and in different ways. And the reason Jonas and I picked these projects is because we were very very in tune or deeply moved by the social changes they were trying to make, and felt that Laura, Amar, and Shuchi actually had a very clear vision on how to make it happen. So it does give me hope in terms of like, young creative people moving beyond also just their skills and creativity, and using that to change the world in other ways. Like, I think creativity can be undervalued, and I think creativity is incredibly important for innovation and creating new ideas sort of across the board in any field, and whether that's like to inspire activation in trade work, to inspire people to just have access to cinema at all, to help educate young girls on how to react to sexual trauma or something like that. Like, I think I just think it's all so important. And so I'm glad, we were able to sort of be a part of that. And it's really cool to see, to see people so engaged, and it inspires me to also see where I can fit in my own, my own interests. How can I use my creativity to make change as well?
Great. Jonas, anything from your side?
Yeah, very well said. I totally agree, and I think what is so nice about yesterday and today is to see that finally it comes so much from the people, and now meeting you three also just online. It's like we talked so much about it, and finally the people and the ideas are coming through the pages, and that is how that in the end it's nice that it's now the discussion comes really to life, and it's not only deciding on projects on paper, because it's also not so easy to put ideas on paper, as we all know from the creative part, but also on these things beyond. And so yes, it was a great experience.
Yeah, and since we've been speaking so much about time today, so it's almost a pity that the hour is gone, but what is important with the Mastercard Enablement Programme, and you mentioned that in some of all of your comments and everything, is so it needs time. So we are in the beginning of a process now. We got to know a little bit here and there, some glimpses on all those projects, but the project and the initiative is actually, it's evolving. So for the next steps, when we find the mentors, when we reconnect, and when we bring in hopefully also the jury members at some point, so that you see how the projects evolve, how they grow. This is also something when we speak about or think about the sustainability, which is probably the most important thing. So we need to keep connected. We need to see how it evolves in a process. And in that respect, I'm super happy that we kicked it off, so that we gave it a good start with the help of the jury, with the support or the enablement of the Mastercard Enablement Programme, and of course the partner behind. And I'm very happy also that we shared it here today with the three and through the three. So stay with us, stay connected for the next process. For today, I say thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.